Fellows, what's going on? I want to welcome you back to the More Than Average Men podcast. I am your host, Michael Benton, and you are listening or watching to episode 5. All right, fellas, how we doing, man? Welcome back to the podcast. Man, it feels like it's been forever since I recorded my last podcast, but for those of you guys that are just tapping in with me for the very first time, maybe this is your very first episode or you even hearing my voice, I want to thank you so much for, kind of tapping in with us. And for those of you guys that have already been following me and listening to the podcast, again, welcome back. I greatly appreciate it. This is going to be one of my probably favorite episodes, even though it's not even done yet. It's because, I can really relate to the topic, and I think you guys are going to be able to relate to it as well. But before I get into anything, I definitely wanted to preference, this topic that we're going to be talking about, which is neglecting your own needs, is super, super important because it's one of those things in which, like, if you don't really really look at this particular topic and address it, if there is a concern or a need there for you, it could really alter the decisions that you make moving forward. It could really, kind of create some negative feelings or emotions towards certain people in your life. And I think that, obviously we're all going to be, as far as all, but us men are going to be able to really gravitate towards this particular topic is because we've all experienced it at some point in time, or some of you guys are actually experiencing it right now. And so definitely want you guys to stay for the whole thing, man. And I think you're going to get some good things out of it, in which you can start to create some change if you need to in this particular area. But I just definitely thought that this particular topic was going to be a really good one. I'm kind of in my bag right now. Like, I'm feeling really good. Like, I got my candles going. It's like 9:30 at night. Like, it's just kind of like a night vibe. And so I'm feeling really good. So I want to start off by kind of addressing, why do us men, decide or choose to put others' needs ahead of our own? And one of the easiest kind of answers or reasonings as to why we do this is because it's part of our tradition, right? As males in society, if you go all the way back to, the kind of the cave days, right? Where, men were the hunters and women were the gatherers. Like, we made sure that the family or the people that we were taking care of were just that, taken care of, right? And so I think that really transcended or even was passed down to to generation to generation. And so it's something that we just inherently do as men. Like, that's just kind of our known duty, is to make sure everyone else is straight. And then if there is time, and more importantly, if we're even cognizant as men to think about ourselves, then we can, do what we want or address the needs and wants that we have. I think another reason too that, this is a reason why we do it is because it's obviously it's societal norms, right? Society tells you that the man is the protector. The man is supposed to support, and financially and emotionally and just all of these different ways. And so it's really like, just kind of like impounded in your head all the way up through, through school and as you get older and become an adult, that this is just what you do. This is just what males do, right? And which is totally true. But I think that where we kind of lack as far as men in that particular area is we don't question, right? We don't think like, okay, what else is there, beyond taking care of or fulfilling the needs of others that we love or that we have some type of relationship with. Is there room for me? Is there do we think about ourselves? And we don't. Oftentimes we definitely don't, right? And we kind of get stuck in this whole loop, and it just kind of spirals out from there, and that leads to other things that we'll talk about as we get down the road. But man, I think that, like I said, traditionalism, societal norms is going to be the huge ones, and then obviously just that obviously encompasses, what you've learned from the male role models in your life, whether you were raised by your dad or if it was by your, your uncles or your grandpa or whatever the case may be. More than likely, right, the things that kind of this role that we have was taught to them as well. And so they're teaching what they know and what they've been taught, which is probably the same thing, right? Like, take care of your family, hide your feelings and don't worry so much about yourself and just kind of go through life that way. What I found in that is, or that kind of thought of thinking or training, is that, man, it could really be detrimental. Like, I've experienced it, right? Like, I've experienced it where it's just like you kind of fall into like this, I don't know, like this abyss, right? This space in which you operate, in which you're just tunnel vision and you're just operating, right? You're not really conscious of what's going on. You're kind of just moving subconsciously, right? Through routines and just kind of the actions that you normally take. And so we don't never like sit back and like take time to like think like, okay, what it is that I want. And if we do, by that time, like all of these things that we're going to talk about has already like built up, right? And we have all of these negative feelings and emotions and things of that nature and behaviors that we do as a result or direct result of neglecting our own needs. And for some of you guys, it can even feel selfish to think of yourself, right? And to want to take care of your own needs. It could, and that also comes from having limiting beliefs, right? What we believe to be true. And again, you got to remind yourself that these things that are stemmed from what you've been taught, right? And in classrooms, and when it comes to parenting and those folks that have been role models in your life, whether you were raised by your dad, or if you're raised by your uncles or your grandpa, more than likely, right, 9 times out of 10, they've kind of inherited those same type of beliefs as well. And so they're teaching only what they know. And so there's no fault to their own. But I think as men, it's our responsibility, especially if we're trying to better ourselves and better those around us, is really be able to take some quality time to understand that, it's okay to fulfill our own needs, right? It's okay to think about us. It's okay to be selfish in that, right? And we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But I think those are kind of the main reasons that I think of when I think of men focusing on other people's needs and kind of neglecting their own. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about too was like, so what happens when you neglect your own needs or your own wants? And I'm sort of thinking back to my experience, right? Because it's so vivid for me. And so I more so felt this, and no fault of anyone other than mine, right? But it was just, I felt this more when I was married. Because, and I think a lot of you men will relate, whether you're in a marriage or you're in a serious relationship or you have kids, life seems to, well, it doesn't seem to, it is, right? It revolves around everyone else but yourself. At least it seems that way, right? It feels that way because you have so much more responsibility. You have things that you have to do. You have people that you have to take care of. And so it feels like we don't have any time to take a step back and really replenish our energy, really like think about what it is that we want and what we need before anyone else's. So, it can start to create resentment in that area. Like I said, when I was married and I just felt like I had to provide, I had to make sure that I had a full-time job, right? And whatever the kids needed for school, we need to make sure that I got that. And it wasn't just me; it was my wife at the time too. Like, we both collectively made sure that things were straight in the household. But I had to, just make sure the house was taken care of and everything was safe, right? And financially, we had money and we had gas in the cars and we had this and we had that, and and make sure that the wife was, happy. And I was making sure that I was doing things that made her happy, and as well as the kids. And that goes back to that tunnel vision thing where you just kind of lose sight of yourself. Really, you lose sight of kind of who you are and what it is that you like and what it is that you want. And you do that long enough, right? You go years of doing that, and you get to a point where, like I did, where you got to a breaking point. And it wasn't just that particular kind of scenario in which, I felt like, oh, I'm neglecting my needs. It was a compound effect of other things too. But, once you become aware, you're like, man, like what do I need? What do I need to fill my cup? You know what I mean? And replenish myself. And so I think that's part of the reason what happens when you neglect yourself. And as I mentioned before, feeling of losing yourself, your identity, right? You're kind of, like I mentioned before, you're running on autopilot. You're running on this subconscious living where, like I said, you just go. You already know the directions in which you need to turn when you go to work or whatever, and it's just there's no thought behind it. And that's a scary thing. Like, in retrospect, now that I can kind of see that, it was very scary because we talk about like wanting to better ourselves as men and use our full potential, but when you are like living subconsciously and you're just kind of operating out of necessity as it is, that's a scary thing, man, because like, where are you going? Like, it doesn't seem like there's any plan, there's no direction. It's just you're just kind of just like floating in space. And that can be a really detrimental thing, especially when you hit a point in which, whether it be rock bottom or you hit a point where it's just like, whoa, like what have I been doing for the last 5 years? What have I been doing for the last 9 years? Right. And then you all of a sudden, like, you wake up and it's like, I don't know what I've been doing. Where am I going? And so I think that, by having this conversation, some of you guys that are experiencing this right now, hopefully this will be some sort of wake up call for you in which you can snap out of it, right? And you can start to question and think, okay, you know what? Is it okay for me to put my needs first and to really get myself going, so that way I can give back to those that I do want to support. Making decisions without understanding if they're the right decisions for you, or if they're decisions in which it's right for someone else, is a huge thing too, right? That's another reason as to, what happens when you neglect yourself. And so decision making, it no longer becomes what's best for you, right? In any situation, whether you're married or you're single, whatever the situation may be, like when you're putting others first and you're putting yourself last, the decisions that you're making, they're not decisions that are going to benefit you or, help you out. You're always going to be looking at, okay, what this decision I'm going to make, how's it going to make them better? How's it going to help them? And again, you sort of lose sight, right? Like of what's important to you and what do you need and what do you want? So it all goes back to being a conscious being, which is one thing that I as a concept that I stumbled upon not too long ago. And I really, really am starting to embrace it, because I really do think that it's true, in which that, if we can start to become more, conscious beings in which we deliberately are self-aware, which is another way to saying it, of what's going on internally as well as externally, dude, your potential is exponential, right? And you'll be able to make some great decisions, and the rewards and the, kind of the outcomes of what you're looking for are definitely going to be there if we're aware of what's going on. And if you're unaware, then again, you're riding in that abyss, right? And you're sort of like that. A good analogy would be like that sphere that's in a pinball machine, right? And you're kind of just like being hit in any direction, but the direction that you want to be hit in, right? Like you go wherever the little toggle things, tell you to go. That's kind of how life is if you're unaware of your awareness, right? And kind of what's been going on. And so those are some of the main reasons that in which neglect can hurt us if we were to begin to neglecting our own needs. And so I guess some of you guys are probably wondering, well, okay, how am I able to work on myself, or give to others and myself at the same time? Is that possible? And I want to tell you that it's definitely possible. Some of the ways in which we can do so, I'll start off by saying, first, setting boundaries and priorities is a major thing. Setting priorities in the sense that, if you are, if you need to take alone time, right? Every day you need to have a set amount of time. These are just examples of what you could do. But, if you need, hey, at the end of each day, I need 30 minutes to myself, right? At the end of a work day, I need 30 minutes to myself. Or, if you wake up early and you need an hour to yourself in the morning, or whatever the case may be, like that could be an example, right? Of setting your priorities, right? Making time for yourself. I would also say learning to say no, right? Setting boundaries, learning to say no. Like, you don't necessarily have to say yes all the time. You know what I mean? Like, it's okay. If there are certain things that are going to pull you away from your priorities, then you say no, right? But only you can set those for yourself. But again, setting boundaries with yourself, with your spouse, with your girlfriend, with your work, right? Whatever it is, your hobbies, like, you're going to have to set those boundaries and say, okay, at this particular day or this particular time, I'm going to do this for myself, right? I'm going to not do this, and making sure that you are giving back to yourself is one way that you can meet your needs as well as others. Because I'll tell you, like, listen, like, most of you guys don't understand this, and I didn't understand this either, but because I was always under the assumption that I did feel a little bit selfish, in the sense that, like, why am I taking care of my needs? Why am I going after what it is I want, when I have responsibilities, right? That was my big thing. Like, I'm a very responsible person. My parents taught me that. The military taught me that, like, responsibility, right? You do what, needs to be done. And so, I was in that same boat. And I was like, well, why would I focus on myself or kind of give to myself before I give to others? And I would tell you, man, like, you'll find out, like, once you start incorporating this and you start really focusing on, your own needs first, you are going to be able to give so much more to others. It's crazy how it works, right? Like, it's not that really crazy, because you think about it, like, if your cup is empty, right? And let's say you don't have any energy, maybe you're depressed, and it's just things aren't going well. You're not happy with how life is for you, so on and so forth. Do you actually think that you're going to be able to inspire someone, motivate someone, make your spouse or your kids joyful and happy, provide beautiful moments for them out of a place of despair or discomfort? Probably not, right? So you got to think about, like, when your cup is full, so to speak, right? And you're full of energy, and your dopamine levels are up, right? And you're feeling good, and you're physically, healthy, and you're eating good, and you have mental clarity, and you're reading, you're advancing, and you're growing. You're going to want to, like, share all of that, right? Like, everything that you do for the other person or persons is going to have so much more energy attached to it. And you're going to want to give to them more, right? And you're going to be able to fulfill their cups because your cup is full, because you're joyful, because you have energy, because you're growing, because, you feel love within yourself. And so you're going to give them love, right? And so it's an easy concept to understand it. But like I said, we just become so narrow-minded when it comes to duty and responsibility that we kind of lose sight of also what's important, which is ourselves. You know what I mean? So another way that you can meet your needs and others too is really understanding the difference between selfishness and self-care, right? Selfishness is when you are, like, indulging in too much of yourself and you don't care about the needs of others. That's selfishness, right? Whereas self-care is like replenishing your own resources without depleting anyone else's. Do you see the difference? So, like, selfishness, obviously an example of that, right? Like, if you're, if gambling is a thing for you that kind of gives you a release, and or you like to party, or you like to drink, or like to hang out with the homies, or whatever it is, and you're doing that all night as soon as you get off of work, or you're gambling all the money away from the family, or whatever the case may be, that's selfishness, right? You're meeting your needs, but you're taking away from others, right? Whereas, when you're practicing self-care, you're just replenishing the resources that you have within, so that way, you're able to give back to others without depleting their stuff, right? So when you're, again, examples, when you're playing basketball on the weekends, you're golfing, right? You're journaling, you're meditating, you're maybe doing yoga, maybe you're tinkering around in the garage, or whatever the case may be, whatever gives you kind of that rejuvenation and makes you feel like, okay, I'm building up things within me that I like, that I want, that I need to make me more joyful and happy and exuberant and wanting to make sure that my family or those that I take care of or have some type of relationship with, they're feeling the same way. And so I think, again, it's important to understand the difference between the two. Knowing your worth, that, listen, dude, bro, you're just as important as anyone on this planet. And to you, you should feel that you're the most important thing on this planet. Again, that sounds selfish, right? Saying that, but it's true, because no one is going to take care of you but you, right? And only you know what you need and what you want and where you're trying to go and the things that you're trying to aspire to accomplish or achieve. And so knowing your worth, the fuller you are in what you need, the more capable you are of taking care of other people. It's pretty simple, right? So knowing that you're worth it, you have so much potential, right? You have so much love to give. You are loved, right? But some of us, again, we lose sight of that. We don't think that way. Most males don't think that way, right? It's too sappy, it's too girly, it's too soft. You know what I'm saying? But as you develop yourself, you'll get it. You may not understand it right now, but as you keep moving towards bettering yourself, you'll understand what I'm talking about. And it's a beautiful thing when you get to a point where you do love yourself, right? And you do find importance in making sure that, hey, I need X amount of time to myself. I need this in order to, make sure my cup is filled and I'm moving towards the life that I want and the direction that I want and the things that make me feel happy, right? And useful, so to speak. So know that you're worth it, bro. Know that you're worth it, right? You have so much to give. And you just got to believe that. You got to believe that within yourself, right? You got to really believe that within your soul, that you're worth everything that you desire. You're worth it to have it. You are. And the first area, the first place in which you need to, start developing and making sure that the universe is giving you what you want is to give to yourself first. So make sure that you guys are setting some time, like I said, setting some time to pour into yourself, to figure out what it is. And if you don't know what you need and what you want, then this is a perfect time for you to really take some time to think about, okay, what is it that I need? Do I need my emotional cup filled, right? Do I need my spouse or someone to say, nice things about me, to reinforce that, hey, I am a good person. Hey, I am doing what I need to be doing. I am responsible. I am loved, right? Do you need someone to kind of fill that cup for you, right? Do you need the physical side of it? Do you need to work out? Do you need to eat better? What do you need? And write it down. And until you figure out what it is that truly makes you happy and joyful, right? And once you figure that out, then you start going ahead and making sure that you're again setting those boundaries and those priorities to implement that in your daily regimen. There's a book that I read not too long ago in this book club that I'm in, and it's called the Miracle Morning. I forgot who the author is, but I'll definitely make sure that I put it in the show notes. But he talks about setting up your mornings in which, again, you're giving yourself that time. You're fulfilling your needs within that hour or that 6 minutes or whatever it is that you need or have time to do. And I think it's a perfect place for any one of you guys to start incorporating this in your life. And just to kind of touch on it, he gives you So it's like waking up maybe you're writing in your journal, right? So the first thing you do when you wake up is you drink a glass of water, right? That kind of like rehydrates your system, kind of gets it going again. Then he talks about doing some type of exercise in the morning. So if you guys aren't able to like go to a gym, on the side of my bed, this is what I've been doing for the last like 30 something days. So on the side of my bed when I wake up, I do push-ups, I'll do some sit-ups, I'll do some crunches, and I'll do some jumping jacks, right? And I'll do like 2 or 3 rounds of that. And it's just quick stuff just to get the heart pumping, right? And then he also talks about like, reading in the morning and journaling and saying things that you're grateful for, doing your gratitude, prayer, reading affirmations. So if you haven't read the book, it's amazing, amazing book. Again, I'll put that in the show notes, but that would be a perfect kind of starting point for those of you guys that really need to start harnessing what it is that you need and want for yourself, and really taking the time to focus on you, to be selfish, right? And that's a great way to start. So if you haven't checked it out, you got to read the book, The Miracle Morning. It's a fascinating book. So when you actually put these things into practice, right? When you actually find time to pour into yourself and take care of yourself in that sense, what you'll end up finding is that you're going to have more control over your emotions. When I was doing like journaling, or I'm doing yoga, or I'm meditating, maybe I'm taking a cold shower or whatever, that's kind of my regimen or whatever, what I find is that I have like way more mental clarity, and like I have way more control over my emotions because my thought process is so much clearer, right? Because I have incorporated things that I enjoy and that gives me life every day. And so by doing so, I've been able to control my emotions for the most part when situations come up or things that I can't control, instead of like, being all out of control, right? And reactive to those circumstances. I have more clarity, right? So I'm able to like discern, okay, this is happening right now. But I don't need to react crazy. I don't need to do any outlandish outbursts, right? I can let me process this, as it's happening. And so, that's one of the things that happens when you start practicing, more of your needs and meeting your needs, is you have kind of a control over your emotionals, and rather than being out of control based on those circumstances, you feel more at peace. I talked about this, I think the second episode, but my weekends, I feel so at peace on my weekends, like, because I'm doing what fills my cup, bro. Like, I'm doing what I want. And for those of you guys that haven't listened to I think it's the second episode, check it out. But like I said, on the weekends, man, I have a routine. Like, I wake up and I do my morning routine, and then I go to the gym. And then when I come home, I make coffee, I make myself breakfast, I sit down and I journal. And I don't know what it just feels so good to sit down and have a cup of coffee, and I got music playing in the background. And side note, I'm light skinned, so yeah, I listen to a lot of R&B, whatever. Light skinned brothers gotta stick together. But I have music playing in the background, and I'm in my element, bro. Like, I'm really just like feeling really, really good. And so, I encourage you guys to find out what that is for you. If you do not know, what makes you like, you ever just like, I don't know, you ever just do something and it just brings you so much joy, and you're like just happy? There's got to be something that you guys have done or currently do that just makes you happy. I don't know. Maybe it's cutting someone's hair. Maybe it's tattooing. Maybe it's just sitting in peace and quietness. Maybe it's I don't know, putting on your cleats again and running routes. I have no idea. But for me, those are the things that seriously bring me peace, and I love it. And another thing too, like, because I've found out what that is, and it brings me so much joy and so much peace, I will not I will not let anyone or anything remove me from that feeling. I won't. Because it's too important to me. And if that person that I'm with, whether I'm in a relationship or whatever the situation may be, if they truly love me or love you, or, they care about me or whatever, they're not going to try and make me, deviate from what brings me pleasure, from what brings me joy. And I'm obviously, we wouldn't want to do that to that person either, but you start to get to a point where, you have these routines and you have these boundaries in your life and these values, right? And you know your worth. And so, like, listen, this is where I'm at, right? And it's like, I'm not being taken off that track for nobody, for nothing, right? Because it makes me who I am. It makes me joyful, makes me happy. So, and I would say also too, by being able to practice more of your own needs, is you're able to give a lot more to others. And this is kind of that thing that I think that we as men miss. And it's like, but it's true. Like, if you pour into yourself more and find ways in which you can give to yourself more, you're going to be 10 times more capable of giving to others, because you're going to have the energy, man. And you're just going to want to, and it's going to feel good. Right. And you're going to come from a place where you're not depressed, but you're coming from a place where you have clarity, and you have thought, and you have, discipline. Right. And there's a willingness, there's a wanting to give more to others. And so practice more of your needs, bro. Be selfish in that, right? You deserve it. You're worth it. Give to yourself, right? Take care of yourself, whatever that looks like for you, right? So if you don't know, start to figure it out. Look back at some things that you've done in your life, or that you've indulged in, that obviously were good things, but that brought you happiness, that brought you joy, that made you feel lively, and find a way to do more of that. So that was the message, man. That was the message on, us neglecting our own needs, and really thinking that it's super important that we find ways to give back to ourselves in order to give more to others. And so, again, if you don't know what that is, go figure that out. That's kind of your assignment for the week and for yourself. And as always, man, like I said, I appreciate you guys for tapping in with me. Whether you're listening or you're watching this, wherever that is, please subscribe. I can't do this without you. I love and respect your guys' support, and I want to keep being able to bring you more content. And so please subscribe wherever it is that you're listening or you're watching. And as I always say, I will see you on the next one. Peace out, fellas.